The film opens by showing a very beautiful beach. The water is clear, and the atmosphere feels calm. There, a woman is seen diving while recording activities underwater. The woman's name is Nick, and she came to the beach with some of her friends, Lisa, Jody, and her younger sister, Kath.
This? How do you... Ready?
On the way back to the lodge, Nick notices a wound on Kath's hand. It makes her curious, so she immediately asks what happened. Kath explains that she had climbed onto the roof to fix a leak and got injured while doing it. However, the situation changes when Kath's husband, Greg, arrives. It's clear that Greg doesn't like Kath's hobby, and arguments between them often happen because of it. Seeing the situation, Nick chooses to return to the lodge. After arriving at the lodge, Nick suddenly receives a message from Kath asking her to come right away. Feeling that something is wrong, Nick immediately goes to Kath's house. When she gets there, her suspicion grows as she sees the messy condition of the house. Nick then approaches Greg and asks about her sister. The answer she gets shocks her. Greg admits that he killed Kath after their argument. Nick is even more devastated when she sees Kath's body in the bathtub. The story then moves to 6 months after the incident. Nick is seen returning to the beach she once visited with her friends. There, she meets them again after quite a long time apart. One of them is her old friend, Annie. Her friends try to comfort her because she is still grieving her sister's death. They have also planned something to remember Kath at that beach.
But if you don't think it's right...
In the afternoon, they are seen relaxing by the shore. One of Nick's friends, Annie, notices that Nick is still holding on to her sadness. Because of that, Annie invites her to talk while drinking a little wine to make the mood calmer. During the conversation, Nick admits that she is no longer brave enough to dive. Every time she tries, she always remembers Kath.
Yeah.
Really? Watch out for that.
The next day, they decide to go to an interesting place around the beach. Jody has prepared several rowing boats to get there. They all look excited and immediately set off together.
Look at that.
After arriving at the location, they start diving enthusiastically. Nick actually still feels scared, but she tries to act normal in front of her friends. Meanwhile, Annie, who doesn't join the dive, sees something moving in the water and thinks it's a shark, but it turns out Lisa is just joking to scare her. After that, Annie uses binoculars to look around and accidentally sees a small child swimming near the shore. Not long after, Annie truly panics when she sees a shark fin around them. She tells Lisa to quickly inform the others.
A shark. Look at the fin.
On the other side, Nick is still trying to overcome her fear. Lisa then tells Jody and Nick to return to the boat because there is a shark nearby. Jody doesn't really believe it at first, but still takes Nick back. They had planned to head to the nearest beach to cook the fish they caught. However, Annie keeps thinking about what she saw. Lisa, noticing her zoning out, tells Annie to row faster. It turns out the shark Annie saw really appears again. Annie wants to warn her friends, but she has already fallen quite far behind. The panic grows as the shark is right beneath her boat.
Lisa!
The boat Annie is on is suddenly hit by the shark, causing her to fall. Lisa, who is ahead, immediately turns back after seeing it, but she also falls when the shark attacks again. Jody and Nick quickly move closer to help. Annie manages to get back onto the boat, but the situation becomes even more tense. Annie tries to save Lisa, but the worst cannot be avoided. The shark eventually attacks and devours Lisa right in front of Annie. After that incident, Annie immediately tells Jody to warn the kids she saw earlier to get back to the shore before the shark gets closer. The situation is pretty tense because the shark is moving very fast toward them. Luckily, one of the kids manages to reach the shore just in time. Meanwhile, another child is still on a raft. His mother, seeing a shark approaching, immediately panics. Not long after, the shark hits the raft, causing the child to fall into the water. Even though he gets bitten, he still manages to be rescued and survives a more serious attack. On the other side, the mothers on the beach are actually waiting for their husbands who haven't returned from fishing. As the situation becomes more dangerous, one of the mothers asks Nick to help get assistance. The woman offers their motorboat, which is quite fast. However, the boat is small and pretty risky to use. Even so, they don't have many options and still bring it to the shore to use. Annie then comes up with an idea to reinforce the boat. She tries to combine it with a kayak to make it more stable and less likely to tip over. At the same time, Nick still looks hesitant to go back into the sea because of the trauma she's feeling. After the boat is modified, Nick still refuses to join. This leads to a brief argument with Annie. However, the situation changes when a mother arrives carrying some sharp weapons just in case. With a bit more confidence, Nick finally decides to go with them.
Coming with you. Yes.
But things get worse again. The boat they are using turns out to be leaking, and the engine also has problems and can't function properly. In the end, they get stranded in the middle of the sea in an increasingly dangerous situation.
What is it? I thought I heard something.
In the middle of the chaos, Jody tries to take control. When Annie and Nick start blaming each other, Jody tells them to focus and start rowing immediately. There aren't many options, so Annie and Nick finally follow Jody's lead and row as hard as they can. As the journey continues, they realize the shark is still very close. The signs can be seen from a group of birds circling above the sea. This makes them panic even more and row faster. Suddenly, their boat gets hit and Annie falls into the water. Nick immediately tries to help and tells Annie to get back up, but the shark attacks again. Even so, it doesn't immediately attack Annie. Nick uses that moment to jump in and help Annie back onto the boat. Now, the three of them are stuck on the boat, with the shark still lurking around. Nick then tries to find a way to fight back. She comes up with the idea of using an anchor and a hook to trick the shark. It works for a moment, but the shark comes back and hits the boat, causing Jody to fall. The situation becomes more critical as the boat starts to lose balance and nearly sinks. Nick then tries another method by using a net to catch the shark. However, the plan doesn't go smoothly because Annie gets tangled in the net along with the shark. Seeing that, Nick immediately jumps into the water. With the strength she has left, she finally manages to defeat the shark by injuring its belly. After that, she also manages to save Annie, who is already in a weak condition. At the end of the story, the three of them return to the beach where everything began. This time, their arrival is to remember their friends who lost their lives in the incident.